Okay, we are going to start with hyperscale and AI data centers, the market outlook in 2020 in Saudi Arabia. So this is our topic. And I'm Syed Omair. I'm a data center expert and running a consultancy firm named Curated in Saudi. We have an office here, one in US and one in Riyadh. And I'm the founder of the company. And I have a small team of experts, and we provide, consulting for data center services in Saudi Arabia. So for today's topic, we are going to just start with what's going on in Saudi Arabia. Like we all know, there's a big buzz about AI-ready data centers, hyperscalers. Okay, so Saudi Arabia is no longer constructing just data centers, but they are building the capability for data centers. Okay, so from just a few years back, we were building 8 to 10 kilowatt, and even before in 2017, we were building 5 kilowatt average rack densities. But now in AI data centers, we are talking about 30 to 50 kilowatt per rack, even beyond that 80 kilowatt in some cases. So, it's totally changing. Saudi Arabia is the data center market. It's being driven by, the hyperscalers, the sovereign funds, okay, like PIF, Saudi, development funds, okay? So there are different funds and, the hyperscaler initiative that are driving this, trend of data centers in Saudi. So now Saudi Arabia is building, like we all know, it's not a new topic for any one of us right now. Okay, all over the news we can see like X many gigawatts are being built, hundreds of megawatts are being built every day. There are new developers, investors coming up. Okay, so this is being mainly driven by these factors that you see on the screen. Okay, Vision 2030, like we know, is the backbone of all the development. Okay, and all that we have been discussing, and the regulatory such as CST and Sadaya now and MCIT, they are driving this data center vision in this country. And for strategic edge, Saudi has a key location. We are a central hub between we can provide connectivity. Yeah, we can provide connectivity to Asia, to Europe, to Africa. So because of this key location, Saudi plays a key role in serving as a data center AI hub for this region. And we are not just building, like I said, the capacity, like in terms of 100 megawatt and 300 megawatt or gigawatts, but we are building the capability. What that means is, the AI research, labs, and, we are combining the fiber connectivity, low latency routes, okay, all over the country. So when we are building capacity in terms of, 100 megawatt, we're not just building capacity, but we are building the country's capability in data centers. Okay, so capability to do the AI research, to capability to do, the AI-driven, innovations and, all the development that's been going on, okay, and the technology that's, comes with AI. So all of this is serving as a key role. And like I said, our key position, which is central to Asia, Europe, and Africa, we can serve as a node to connect the rest of the world. Okay, so that's the main reason we are building AI data centers, not just building megawatts or gigawatts, but building the capability in-house. So now when we talk about data center, we must talk about the trends. What are the trends in Saudi Arabia today? Okay, these are global trends as well as Saudi Arabia related trends. So the trends are basically, we have now, instead of building 10, 30 megawatt data centers in one location, which was just going on even last year, even right now the focus is shifting to building campuses of 100 to 300 megawatt, okay, like UAE and other countries around us. They're building campuses of gigawatts. Even Saudi Arabia, Human has taken a drive. They plan to build gigawatts of data centers. I don't want to quote specific gigawatts because, the announcements sometimes, they are a bit different than what actually is happening on the ground. But still, they are building 1 gigawatt plus campuses, okay, in one location. So this gives us an edge to, drive the data center capability in the country. Power to tenant bridge, what that means is basically the hyperscalers today, they just don't need, they need the power agreements long-term, PPAs, okay, power purchase agreements. So when you want to bring a hyperscaler in the country, You just don't give him a power, you give him a long-term power agreement. For example, for 15 years on low economical rates, okay, they do a long-term PPA. Grid integration is very important, okay, for the hyperscalers, okay, because for massive capacities of 100, 300 megawatt in one location, even gigawatts, you need double of that as the facility power. So to bring all that power in one location, it's a big challenge. So early grid tie-ins, what that means basically, when we are building a data center today in Saudi Arabia, which scale of hundreds plus megawatt, we need to basically make sure that we have tie-in with the grids, the capacity. It's like first come, first serve. Whoever developers and investors and hyperscalers will come right now, they will secure the long-term PPAs. They will have the grid tie-ins. They will have the strategic locations with low latency. For example, hyperscaler, they need to be closer to the sea cable. Okay, so there are some strategic locations. You cannot just build a data center anywhere. So latency is a big issue, because if you're far from the sea or the fiber, the longer the route, the higher the latency, and lower your output. So the connectivity for any hyperscaler is of the key concern. Okay, that's the number one factor for them. Okay, followed by power, cooling, of course. But the connectivity is the key. So not just having hyperscalers in diverse locations, okay, geographic diversity is very important as well, but most importantly is to have a low latency route. So what we can do, we can basically, as local SMEs and consultants and contractors in Saudi Arabia who are building this data center infrastructure, we can do some tests, okay, for low latency and prove it to the tenant, okay, that this is our latency for this particular location, so we can be ensured that they keep their interest and they come to our facilities, okay? SAMA, CST, NCA, even MOI, they have at CIS, it's applicable in some cases. There are so many regulations and regulatories in Saudi Arabia. So whenever somebody is building a data center in Saudi Arabia, it's not just basically following an international standard. You need to know the local codes and regulations. The local codes, for example, NCA, they have their own requirements for cybersecurity, physical security, okay? CST has very stringent requirement for, ISOs and, several certifications like ISO 27001 they need, okay? And, SAMA, if you want to have financial customers in your data center facility, let's say you are a developer who's building a data center which is for the financial sectors, let's say the banks. So you need to have SAMA compliance. SAMA compliance would require you to have, NCA and PCI DSS and several other compliances that you need to pass. So it's very important to know that you're working not just with international consultants and experts, but also with the local people on ground who have experience in this country for 15, 20, 30 years, and who know how the things are connecting. So regulatory compliance is quite extensive in this country, and this is of importance for the developers. If you are a hyperscale developer and you don't look at regulations, you just follow, let's say, the international standards that are very well known to everyone, okay, like tier 3 standards, tier 4 standards, and you ignore the regulations, your CapEx, your budget is going to be totally out, and you're not going to meet the hyperscaler requirements, and you will not get licensed to operate your data centers. So it's important to align with that as well, okay? Build only to operate ready. Yeah, one point I just missed. Let me just explain this, and then we will move on to the next slide. What this means that, initially there was a culture to just build the data centers. You have an EPC contractor come in, he designs and builds the facility and he leaves. Now the hyperscaler, they want operation-ready data centers day one. They don't want to wait for you to build and then wait 6 months to have your certifications from SAMA, CST, blah, 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 and then you say, okay, now we are ready to come and, operate and, come into your facility. They need your data centers to be ready day one. What this means, when you're designing a data center, again, you're not just looking at international standards, but you are looking at the local codes and regulation day one from the early planning stage, not even design. So you have everything put in the right place, and you have a roadmap that when are you going to have those compliances, because to get the license for cloud co-locations and service provider for cloud services, you need to have the compliances ready. Now, our advantage, Saudi Arabia's advantage, like we discussed briefly in the first slide, I'll just add a few more points, is basically, we have huge investments in renewables going on right now, okay? Hundreds of gigawatts capacity, renewable capacity is being built in Saudi right now. That's massive because data centers need massive power, especially AI-ready hyperscale facilities. They need huge power, and this power can only come with the right strategy in place, and renewables plays a part in that. Although not that big part when it comes to AI power, but still a significant part. Okay, we have the land availability. We have massive land availability in Saudi Arabia for building campuses of AI-ready data centers. Okay, 500 megawatt plus campuses can be built. For example, if you're building just 100 megawatt, you need 400,000 square meter land. Okay, just for 100 megawatt. And if you're scaling more, then of course this will scale more as well. So we have a massive land opportunity available in the country. Okay, energy cost for Saudi is very low as compared to Asia and Europe and other countries. Okay, we have a low energy cost. We have strategic location. Okay, our location is hub between Africa, Europe, and Asia. Okay, and our regulatory is promoting and supporting this data center development right now. There are funds like PIF, SDF, okay, Saudi Development Fund, who are also in collaboration with the hyperscalers, so, and local investors as well. There is a support to build such facilities. So if you want to build, even if you don't have let's say you have an idea and you want to execute it, you can find partners like through SPVs and joint ventures and different things with hyperscalers and local investors and developers, even government support to build your vision. Okay, you don't have to financially invest all the time. You can invest and you can have others invest with you, and you can develop data centers. So that the country is promoting and supporting the initiatives for data center construction and operations. Now, this is a key slide to discuss. It's lots to be put in one slide, but let me just tell you what are the key problems that we face today. We talk about our strengths in the last slide. Now let's talk about what problems we are facing and how to counter them. Okay, this is very important. So in Saudi Arabia today, when we are building a data center, we have quite challenges. We have the long lead time post-pandemic has increased. For example, diesel generators are now taking, if you have a 1 megawatt plus diesel generator, which is required for data centers, of course, today. So you have, you need to wait sometimes. If you talk to top 5 OEMs, they will say 15 to 18 months sometimes. Okay, that's massive amount of time. The total construction time is less than 2 years. And if you're waiting 15 months just to get your generators on site, it's a disaster. So this is a challenge, A supply chain is a big problem right now, okay, and all these things. So how to counter it? Basically, we can have something like pre-order. We don't have to wait for the completion of the design, which will take 3 to 4 months, 5 months. We can do it in the concept design stage. We can pre-order the capacity components, the long lead items, okay, like chillers, generators, all these items to mitigate this challenge. Okay, other challenges, I gave a talk on this same platform last year on the data center operations. So finding the right operations partner is a challenge, okay? And that's because the hyperscaler expect to have complete end-to-end operational support, okay? They don't just want, and locally we don't have that capability, to be very frank today, that you have a single provider who can look after facilities management, white space management, IT managed network services, remote and smart and fit out services. Okay, so you need all of this to be put in together, and the local service provider need to provide that. And the hyperscaler and the local developers, investors, they are looking for DCO, data center operations partner, and there are very few in the country today. So that's a gap as well. Okay. There are many gaps we can discuss. The talent shortage, okay, it's a global dilemma. For this sector, especially in Saudi Arabia, we have shortage of talent, specialized contractors, operators, like we discussed, okay, and subject matter experts who can support end-to-end, not just in the design or planning, they can support you across the full life cycle from construction, commissioning, operation, and maintenance, okay? So you need to have that. And as well as the biggest dilemma in the country today is ROI focus. The investments that are being done in data centers nowadays, they are not ROI focused, okay? Because most of the developers in the country, with exception of few, they're relying on, a lease-only model. Like you're building a facility for 10 megawatt, 100 megawatt, and you're relying only on lease. Guess what? This is the worst way to build your ROI, because when you invest, let's say $1 billion into building a data center, and you rely only on lease model, which gives you like 1 megawatt, 1 million real per megawatt per month MRC, monthly recurring charges, you are talking about waiting 20 years to just recover your investment. The ROI is 20 years, which is horrible. If you want to wait 20 years, why not go build a grocery store or a bakala? Why go into something that's technology centered like data center and more complex? So most of the developers, with exception of few, they don't know how hyperscalers work, in Europe and other places. When you are a local developer, you're bringing in a hyperscaler, you're not just relying on the lease as your revenue stream. You're relying on the cloud. You take a cut from the cloud revenue, which is the bulk of the revenue, okay? A 1 megawatt facility, if it's built for, let's say, 300 million, your revenue from cloud will be, 1,500. So it will be 4 or 5 times. Sorry, let me correct this, okay? You build a facility for 1.5, like 15 million per megawatt, okay, which is the typical, or 12 million per megawatt, okay? But when you operate it, you get like 3 million per megawatt as your operational expense every year. And you build it for 15, 20 years. When you add this, you get your cost of ownership, okay? The lease that's coming, which is a million real per megawatt, typical wholesale rate in Saudi, okay? It can be 800K real or 900K real in some cases, but this is the typical average, okay? So this gives you 20 years. So the same data center that you have built, the hyperscaler who leases it, he makes the cloud and AI revenue, which is 5, 6 times of this. He gives you a lease amount and he makes 5, 6 times of the revenue from it. So why don't you go and ask them for even 10%, 15, 20% of the cut from that revenue, because it's your facility. The local developers, some of them, they have a misconception that, we don't want to go into cloud. We are like real estate minded. Fine, you're real estate minded. You don't have to go into cloud. You don't have to invest in cloud. Your hyperscaler partner would do that. But you can set up a JV with them that since it's your facility and you are facing the regulations, you are facing the country requirements and all the interface, and they're just coming in with their rack fit outs and selling their cloud services through your facility, you deserve at least a cut from the revenue of the cloud. So on top of lease, you get a cloud revenue. Even if you get 10, 15% of it, you're going to double your lease amount, So your ROI will drop from 10 to 13 years, from 20 to 13 years. So that's a big shift. And then there are other things you can do your revenue, to improve your ROI, which is, for example, value-added services. For example, if some developer built a data center in Saudi and he has a hyperscaler, they run out of capacity, for example, storage capacity. Then we can sell as value-added services, additional storage capacity to the hyperscaler, and you make some extra buck on that, okay? And you can do other like remote hand, smart hand fit out engineering services for hyperscalers that can give you additional revenue streams. So when you combine all this, we are talking about 6 to 8 years of ROI instead of 20 years. That's a very big shift. That's a big shift for those who understand this point over here from financial background. Okay, this is a very massive shift coming down from 20 to 8 years. And then we can talk about, other challenges that we are facing. Regulatory, we already discussed, okay. Tenant specifications, yeah, very important as well. How much time do we have left? 5 minutes, okay. Tenant specifications, now, like we are building, for, let's say, as per TIA or uptime standards, the data centers, hyperscalers don't just follow that. They follow way more than that. They have their own specification, own guidelines that we need to know. If we invest into building a data center and a hyperscalers from US or Europe or anywhere else in the world comes, they will need their own specifications to be followed. They will ask you to change, and this is happening. So many players are building data centers without aligning with the tenants or off-takers or hyperscalers, and because of that, they have to spend massive times in renovating and retrofitting their already built data centers to meet their requirements. So why not do it from the early planning stage? Why wait to do it during operations once you have completed the handover for the construction? Why do it in operation? Why not do it in the planning? So just align with the hyperscalers beforehand, okay? So there are many challenges we can discuss. This is not the time for that, okay? So these are some of the key challenges you guys can see and can be detailed some other time. So the way forward, we have maybe 3-4 minutes left. The way forward for us as Saudi Arabia, what should we do? First of all, we should build the local capability. Local capability means, for example, not just relying on international talent, having our expertise and talent in-house. This is the number one thing we need to focus on when we talk about way forward. For example, we need to have our own engineers and consultants, trained and qualified to do the design for hyperscalers. Now, hyperscale, especially AI-ready data centers, is a relatively new phenomena. So there are very few experienced people, but it can be, we have the power. We can get the experts from anywhere in the world, even in-house and outside, and in country, and outside, and we can train our people on that. Universities and colleges, the students or the graduates, engineers who are they should be, taught this kind of knowledge during their, university years, not to wait to go in the professional life and then learn, okay, what is an AI data center? So all this, we need to work ground up. We don't need to have to wait for experts to come. We have to make our own experts, okay? Local manufacturing, very important, for racks, for power, for cooling equipment. Since the long lead time, I just gave you an example of diesel generators for over 1 megawatt is 15 to 18 months right now. If you talk to top 5 diesel generator vendors, OEMs in Saudi, post-pandemic now. So to reduce it to, let's say, drastically, we need to have our own capabilities. We don't have to rely on outside. Okay, localization. Okay, our own people, our own, data, our own talent, our own factories, our own OEM. That's what we need to focus on, number one. Number two is, that covers localization, is collaboration. Basically, when we are building data centers, it should be integrating, the smart grids, the AI research, the connectivity hub, okay, for the entire country. So when we are building capacity, we are not just building capacity in terms of megawatt, but we are enabling the country in terms of capability. We are giving the capability for AI research-oriented capabilities to our country. Okay, for example, let's say somebody built 1 megawatt. So he does not just say, I built a megawatt of data center. He says, I enable my country to reduce the latency, for example, reduce the routes for fiber to this position. We give this capability to do research in AI and robotics and smart cities, okay, and digital infrastructure, digital hubs. So we are building this, we are contributing to this. So we don't just promote that we built X many megawatt or gigawatts, but we played part in building the digital hub, AI enablement, and smart grid capabilities of the country, okay? We need to have integration between EPCs, contractors, consultants, and developers. For example, instead, everybody's working in silos, okay? The main players, who are the main players when you build and operate a data center? You have the developer, the investor, okay? You have the EPC contractor who designs and builds the data centers. You have the MSPs, managed service providers, who operate and maintain data centers. Sometimes they are same as EPC. And then you have the SMEs and consultants and designers. So all of them, instead of working on different contract basis, they should have SPVs, they should have joint agreements, so they all work in the same interest, okay? So that's it from my side, guys. If you have any questions, please ask.